Donald Trump strode onto the stage of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert like a conqueror claiming new territory. The studio audience erupted in a wave of sound, some cheers, plenty of boos, and a nervous undercurrent of anticipation. Bright studio lights glared down, turning the polished floor into a gleaming battlefield. Trump waved with both hands, flashing that signature wide grin, his red tie glowing under the spots. He leaned toward the crowd and boomed, "Relax, everybody. I'm here to save the show's ratings tonight." The laugh that followed was loud but hollow, more polite reflex than genuine amusement. A few scattered claps mixed with uneasy shifting in seats. Trump didn't wait for Colbert's welcome. He cut the host off mid-sentence, dropping heavily into the guest chair and crossing one leg over the other. "Let's skip the fake polite stuff," he announced, stretching his arms along the back of the chair. "You invited me because controversy sells, and I deliver it big league." In Trump's mind, this wasn't an interview. It was a takeover. The stage, the lights, the cameras, they all belonged to him the moment he sat down. He stared across the desk at Colbert with the confidence of a man who had never lost a room. Colbert, dressed in his usual sharp suit, sat perfectly still. He didn't flinch. He didn't interrupt. He simply looked at Trump with a calm, almost curious expression and said evenly, "You seem very comfortable here for someone who claimed last time he was ambushed by the show." The audience reacted instantly, a ripple of oohs and scattered applause. Trump smirked, unfazed. "Ambushed? Please. You throw jokes, I throw results. Big difference." He pointed toward the crowd like they were already his jury. "They don't tune in to watch you lecture. They tune in to watch me win." A few cheers broke out from pockets of supporters, but they clashed awkwardly with long stretches of silence. Trump pressed on, leaning forward. "You comedians love acting brave when there's a script and applause signs telling people when to clap." That line drew sharper reactions, half laughter, half discomfort. The energy in the studio felt electric but unstable, like a wire about to spark. Colbert's eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger, but in quiet focus. Trump kept charging ahead, tapping the desk for emphasis. "Let's be honest, this show only pretends to challenge power. When real power sits in this chair, you freeze up." The crowd murmured. Some laughed nervously, others shifted uncomfortably. Trump took it as fuel. "Even now, you don't know what to say," he added louder, baiting Colbert into a shouting match where volume could drown out substance. But Colbert refused to play on that field. He stayed composed and replied calmly, "I'm not frozen. I'm letting you talk. You seem very eager to prove something tonight." The line landed harder than Trump expected. A stronger wave of applause rolled through the audience. For the first time, Trump's smile tightened at the corners. He tried to reclaim momentum immediately. "Prove something? I already did. You just talk about it on monologue nights." He laughed loudly at his own jab, waiting for the room to join him. The response came slower, delayed claps, pockets of silence. Trump noticed. He adjusted his jacket and raised his voice. "Don't worry, Stephen. I'll carry this segment for you." It sounded confident on the surface, but an edge of irritation crept into his tone. Colbert didn't rush to fill the space. He let the pause stretch, forcing the entire studio to lean forward. That silence was dangerous for a performer like Trump, who thrived on constant motion and reaction. Trump filled it quickly with another jab. "You people love pretending this is serious journalism, but it's comedy cosplay." The audience responded with mixed sounds, scattered boos, awkward laughs, confused murmurs. Trump felt the shift and tried to cover. "Relax, I'm joking," he added quickly, though his face didn't match the words. Colbert leaned forward just slightly and said, "You joke a lot when you're uncomfortable." That single sentence cut through the noise like a blade. Applause broke out stronger. Trump blinked once, fast, then forced the grin back onto his face. The room was starting to slip from his control, and he could feel it in his gut. Colbert shifted in his chair, deliberately slowing the pace. His voice dropped lower, calm and steady against Trump's sharp energy. "Before we move on," he said casually, "there's something small I want to clear up." The word small was chosen with precision. It sounded harmless, almost boring. The crowd relaxed a fraction, expecting a light transition. Trump leaned back, rolling his shoulders, already preparing his next zinger. "Here we go," he muttered into the mic with a smirk. "Let me guess. Another fake headline." A few people chuckled. Colbert didn't smile. He simply nodded once and said, "Not a headline, a question." The pause after question created an unnatural stillness that didn't belong on late-night television. The air in the studio thickened. Colbert looked directly at Trump and asked, "Do you still stand by what you said last month, that the DNA controversy was manufactured noise?" The room shifted immediately. Chairs creaked. Whispers spread. Trump waved his hand dismissively. "Of course. Total nonsense. Internet drama. You know how that goes," he replied too quickly. Then laughed, expecting the crowd to follow. The reaction was softer, more hesitant. Colbert didn't argue or accuse. He simply followed up, calm as ever. Interesting, because when people hear manufactured, they assume there was nothing real behind it. Exactly, nothing real, Trump shrugged, tapping the armrest like he was closing the book himself. But Colbert wasn't done. He tilted his head slightly. Then why did your legal team send 3 separate statements asking networks to stop discussing it? The question didn't explode. It sank in slowly. The crowd leaned forward. Trump's smile froze for half a second before he recovered. Lawyers send letters about everything. That's their job. His voice grew louder, sharper. Colbert nodded slowly, like a patient teacher. So it mattered enough to respond. That quiet observation sent another ripple through the audience. People exchanged glances. The banter had evaporated. This felt procedural now, almost courtroom-like. Trump sensed the danger and pushed back. You're fishing. This is what you do. You pretend to be calm while pushing fake narratives. Mixed noise rose again. Some claps, plenty of uncomfortable murmurs. Colbert didn't defend himself. I'm not pushing anything. I'm asking what you already answered in writing. Trump shifted in his seat, crossing and uncrossing his legs. You're trying to make this serious. It's not. People don't care about paperwork. They care about results. Colbert let the words hang. Then he delivered the next line with devastating simplicity. People care when paperwork decides truth. The studio went quieter than it had all night. Even the camera operators seemed to hold their breath. Trump laughed again, louder this time, forcing energy back into the space. Wow, heavy stuff for a comedy show. But the laugh didn't save him. The audience wasn't laughing with him anymore. They were listening. Colbert reached down slowly beneath the desk and lifted a thin folder. The movement was so casual, it almost looked insignificant. But the second the folder appeared on the desk, the entire energy in the studio transformed. Cameras zoomed in. The audience leaned forward unconsciously. Trump's eyes flicked to the folder and back to Colbert's face. What's that? A prop? Trump joked, forcing another laugh. You running out of punchlines already? Colbert didn't smile. He placed one hand calmly on top of the folder. This isn't a joke, he said quietly. This is a DNA report. The word DNA dropped like a stone into still water. The chatter died instantly. Trump's grin softened for a split second before snapping back into place, but the tension in his shoulders betrayed him. Colbert opened the folder just enough for the camera to catch the first page. Let's start with the source. This sample wasn't taken in secret. It was collected through a legally documented medical record tied to a routine pediatric screening. Low murmurs spread through the crowd. The second sample came from archived biological material already on file with a private lab that handles high-profile cases. Both were anonymized before testing. He paused and looked directly at Trump. No names, no politics, just numbers and genetic markers. That pause stretched painfully. Trump opened his mouth, then closed it. Colbert flipped to the next page with deliberate slowness. Now the verification. 3 independent labs processed the samples. Not 1, not 2, 3. Each followed strict chain of custody protocols, sealed transfers, time-stamped handling, digital verification at every stage. Trump scoffed loudly. You can get any lab to say anything if you pay them enough. Colbert nodded slightly. That's why the labs didn't know whose samples they were testing. They were blind tests. The answer landed like a hammer. Trump's foot stopped its restless bouncing. His jaw tightened visibly. The cameras caught every micro-expression. Colbert turned another page slowly, dragging the moment out. Now, the conclusion. His voice remained flat and controlled. According to all 3 reports, the maternal genetic match does not align with Melania Trump. The studio didn't react right away. There was a half-second of suspended breath, then absolute, crushing silence. No gasps, no immediate boos or cheers, just shock pressing down like a physical weight. Someone in the back row dropped a phone. The clatter echoed unnaturally loud. Trump froze. Not dramatically, physically. His shoulders stiffened. His hands locked together on the armrest. The confident, sprawling posture he had entered with collapsed into rigid stillness. His eyes stayed glued to the folder as if staring could make it vanish. For the first time that night, the man who never stopped talking had nothing immediate to say. Colbert didn't rush to fill the void. He let the silence stretch. 5 seconds, 10. It felt eternal. The weight of the moment grew heavier with every heartbeat. Finally, Trump swallowed hard and forced out a short, thin laugh. That's ridiculous. But the laugh sounded weak, unconvincing. Even to him, Colbert looked up calmly. This isn't a rumor, it's a biological result. That sentence crushed whatever remaining humor Trump tried to summon. The crowd didn't cheer or boo. They absorbed it in stunned quiet. Some covered their mouths. Others stared straight ahead with wide eyes. The atmosphere had flipped from late-night entertainment to something far more serious. Disbelief mixed with unease. Trump shifted in his seat, adjusting his jacket as if he could physically shake off the moment. "You expect people to believe this? On a comedy show?" Colbert responded without raising his voice. "I expect people to understand that DNA doesn't care where it's read out loud." Low gasps rippled through the audience, followed by sharper applause in scattered sections. Trump opened his mouth, but no sound came out for a moment. He closed it, tightened his lips, and looked away toward the crowd, searching desperately for support. The room wasn't with him anymore. He broke the tension with loud, forced laughter. "Wow, you really went all in on this soap opera." A few reflexive chuckles rose, but they were thin and unsure. Trump stacked more noise on top, clapping his hands once. "This is what you do, Stephen. You dress gossip up like science and hope people don't notice." He smiled wide, showing teeth, performing confidence like armor. But the goal wasn't humor anymore. It was survival. When discomfort rose, Trump had always accelerated. Faster talk, louder jokes, bigger gestures. "Next, you'll tell me aliens signed this report," he quipped. A couple of late chuckles came, but they died quickly. Trump leaned toward the audience. "Come on, you don't actually believe this, do you?" The room hesitated. That hesitation was devastating. Instead of unified laughter, he got fragmented murmurs. Some people shifted, others avoided eye contact. Trump felt the energy leaking away and pushed harder. "You see how serious he looks?" he mocked, exaggerating Colbert's calm expression. "That's acting? Hollywood stuff. Very dramatic." Weak laughter followed, forced and short-lived. The rhythm was off. Trump's smile tightened again. He tried a riskier joke. "Maybe I should bring my own DNA test next time. Or better yet, test Stephen. Let's see if he's really related to comedy." He laughed immediately, expecting the crowd to join. They didn't. The studio fell into heavy, unforgiving quiet. The joke died in midair. Trump stopped laughing halfway through his own chuckle, eyebrows lifting in confusion. That was the first unmistakable crack. His humor, the weapon that had carried him through countless tough rooms, had failed. Colbert didn't smirk or pile on. He simply sat there, letting the failed punchline expose itself. The audience felt it too. Some looked down, others glanced at neighbors. A few shook their heads slightly. Trump cleared his throat. "Tough crowd," he muttered, trying to recover. He leaned back, attempting to rebuild his dominant posture. "Look, this is entertainment. You can't take everything so seriously." But the problem was locked in. The crowd was no longer watching for laughs. They were watching for truth. Trump's once powerful laughter now sounded hollow. Every joke felt like a shield raised too late. He kept throwing comments anyway. "Stephen loves playing judge, but he's just a talk show host." Scattered, delayed claps came. Not enough. Not convincing. The shift deepened. Trump talked faster, joked louder, repeated phrases, hoping sheer momentum could drag the room back. Colbert remained silent, hands resting on the desk. That silence made Trump's voice sound louder and more exposed than ever. Every sentence landed alone, without the cushion of audience approval. "You people act like this is a courtroom," Trump said, irritation rising. "It's not. It's television." The irony hung heavy. To everyone watching, it felt like a courtroom now. People weren't entertained. They were judging. Trump noticed the eyes on him had changed. They were no longer smiling. They were steady, measuring. He leaned forward. "Let's move on. This topic is boring." No one laughed. No one clapped. That flat rejection hit harder than any insult could. Trump blinked and scanned the audience again, searching for the familiar energy. He found only quiet, not hostile, but heavy and final. He reacted the only way he knew, by getting sharper. "You're all acting like I committed a crime. I didn't." The defensive slip revealed more vulnerability than he intended. Colbert raised an eyebrow slightly but stayed silent. The audience caught the implication. A few shook their heads. Whispers spread. Trump crossed his arms, then uncrossed them, adjusting like a man losing balance. The heavy quiet stretched long enough to make him visibly uncomfortable. "You people really love drama," he said with a crooked smile. "This is what happens when comedians play scientist." Nervous laughs floated up and died fast. Trump looked around, genuinely confused by the lack of support. He opened his mouth for another joke, but Colbert finally moved. Slowly, deliberately, Colbert leaned forward a few inches, resting his hands on the desk. Not aggressive. Not theatrical, just steady. His voice stayed calm, almost soft. "Mr. President, humor doesn't change facts." The short, plain sentence had no punchline. For half a second, nothing happened. Then the studio exploded. Applause erupted from the center rows first, then surged outward like a wave. People stood, some whistled, others clapped overhead. The energy flipped violently, as if someone had thrown a switch. Trump froze, blinking rapidly, mouth slightly open. He clearly hadn't expected that. He raised his hands, trying to speak, but the applause swallowed his words. "Oh, please!" he shouted over the noise. "You're acting like you solved a crime!" His protest was drowned out. The crowd had chosen a side. When the applause finally ebbed, Trump leaned forward aggressively, gripping the edge of the desk. "You think applause makes you right?" he snapped. Colbert looked at him calmly. "No, evidence does. That second line didn't need fireworks. The damage was already done." Trump gripped the desk harder. "This is fake," he said sharply, smile gone. "Completely fake. You staged this." His voice rose, trying to climb over the lingering applause. "You think bringing papers on TV makes you powerful? It doesn't. It makes you dishonest." The crowd didn't laugh. A few shook their heads. Others crossed their arms. The absence of reaction spoke louder than any boos. Trump kept going, mistaking volume for strength. "You're a second-rate host chasing attention. You couldn't get real ratings without dragging my name into it." To the room, it sounded desperate and personal. Colbert didn't interrupt. He simply watched Trump unravel, letting the contrast speak for itself. That silence turned every one of Trump's attacks into self-damning evidence. Trump laughed again, but it came out dry and hollow. "You all know this is nonsense," he said, spreading his arms to the crowd. "You're smarter than this." No response, no cheers, no claps, just quiet faces staring back. He tried once more. "Come on, don't pretend you believe this garbage." Still nothing. That was the turning point. Trump had lost the room's energy. Instead of pulling support, his words now pushed people further away. He stood slightly from his seat, half rising, as if movement could reassert dominance. "This is a setup. Everyone knows it." The cameras zoomed in on audience faces. No nodding, no agreement, just steady, judging eyes and crossed arms. Trump slowly sat back down. The illusion of control had cracked wide open. He tried one final appeal, spreading his hands wide. "You're all letting a comedian tell you what to believe." Frustration now bled clearly through his voice. A few people shook their heads slowly. Someone in the back let out a soft, disappointed sigh. That small human sound landed heavier than any shout. It signaled that the audience had moved beyond performance. They were processing meaning, credibility, and consequence. Trump's shoulders tensed. He looked around for allies and found none. The room wasn't angry, it was settled, and settled judgment is far more final than outrage. Colbert remained perfectly silent the entire time. He added no commentary, no summary, no victory lap. He simply sat with hands resting calmly on the desk, allowing the room to respond on its own. That disciplined silence became the most powerful statement of the night. It showed confidence that didn't need noise, control that didn't require aggression. Trump finally stopped talking, not because he chose to, but because nothing left to say could move the room. He exhaled sharply and leaned back, staring straight ahead. His posture still attempted dominance, but the tight jaw and rigid shoulders told the truth. He had lost the crowd not through loud humiliation, but through quiet, undeniable contrast. The cameras captured it perfectly. One man silent and composed, the other quiet because he had been emptied of influence. The show wrapped without fireworks or dramatic music. Trump stood slowly, straightened his jacket, and forced a tight smile toward the cameras, pretending nothing had gone wrong. He gave a short wave to the crowd, expecting at least polite applause. It didn't come. Only scattered, half-hearted claps and long stretches of silence followed him as he turned and walked off the stage. Each step felt heavier, not because of the floor, but because the room no longer responded to his presence. He had entered believing he would dominate the night. He left knowing the night had moved on without him. Colbert didn't celebrate. He didn't smirk or raise his hands for approval. He simply stood, offered one calm nod toward Trump's retreating back, and turned to the audience. His expression wasn't triumphant. It was measured and quiet. That calm said more than any victory speech could. It conveyed restraint and unshakable confidence. The cameras lingered for a moment on the empty chair Trump had occupied, then pulled back to show the studio. What viewers would remember wasn't the folder or the dramatic reveal. It was the contrast. One man trying to dominate through volume and spectacle, the other controlling the moment through steadiness and facts. Power, the night proved, doesn't come from being the loudest. It comes from credibility. It doesn't come from overpowering the conversation. It comes from standing firm when the conversation turns uncomfortable. As the studio lights began to dim, many in the audience stayed seated, still processing. Some whispered quietly to neighbors. Others sat in reflective silence, replaying the exchange in their minds. It no longer felt like entertainment. It felt like a rare moment of clarity. That's how you know something real has happened, when people stop reacting emotionally and start thinking deeply. Trump had always relied on noise, bigger voice, stronger presence, relentless comebacks. But that night revealed a truth he couldn't outtalk. Truth doesn't need a spotlight or applause signs to survive. When placed clearly on the table and allowed to sit there, it carries its own undeniable weight. And when a room recognizes that weight, control changes hands quietly, without fanfare. Colbert gathered his notes calmly and walked off without looking back at the desk where the folder still rested. He didn't need to. The moment had already done its work. No celebration, no victory lap. Just a composed exit from a studio that had witnessed something uncommon. A shift born not from force, but from unflinching clarity.